Hey guys, Brockshield here. In this video, I wanted to show my new talent specialization that I'm using as I run the BRD runs, I should say, that you saw in my previous video. The reason that I'm switching over to a new talent spec is because Brockshield is being used in a specialized niche this time as a pure AoE style protection paladin, with the emphasis being on the word protection. Now that I have Daenerys to fulfill his role as a primary healer, as well as Parmenion to fulfill his role as a primary AoE DPS, I found that the number one trait to utilize for Brockshield, in addition to the spell power that increases my consecration damage, is the ability to mitigate damage in the standard protection style. And so for that reason, we will be aiming to get the Holy Shield ability, which is vital in terms of mitigating damage, as we get 4 blocks every 10 seconds, which certainly does mitigate damage pull after pull after pull a lot more than what my previous build was, Divine Favor, which is more useful against the lower level mobs where 4 blocks isn't worth as much as a guaranteed critical heal. And that makes simple sense from the perspective of Scarlet Monastery monsters hit me for 30, these monsters hit me for 200 to 400 to 600, so the block value is adding up a lot more, you can imagine, between mitigating 1200 versus 120 damage. So that's why I've chosen to switch to this build, and without further ado, we'll just show the talents, the specs. So first thing, we need to go for Consecration again. That'll always be our bread and butter talent, so choose Divine Intellect to increase your base mana first and foremost, as Strength is a single target ability mostly used for Retribution Paladins. You've also saw in my previous video, if you saw the BRD runs itself, that pretty much on every pull, Brockshield expends his entire mana bar. So definitely useful to have increased base mana pool in the first place. From there, you're gonna want to go with Spiritual Focus. This gives your Flash of Light and Holy Light spells that 70% ability to not lose casting time if you take damage. Not particularly useful in the higher level dungeons because most of these mobs now have Interrupt, in particular the Anvil Rage Guardsman, Warden, etc. The Overseers, they are monsters that can interrupt your spell casting, so it doesn't hold up with them, but still the best choice. And then go ahead and take Consecration. Next, same start in the protection tree as previous. We'll take Redoubt. We're going to want Guardian's Favor so we have more bops. And since we're attacking with higher level monsters, we're going to want Precision, because we don't want to miss pretty much, especially on those boss level monsters like Lord Rokor. Because what can happen is if you lose control in the split second, you could have Lord Rokor running towards Parmenion or Daenerys. He may be immune to Frost Nova, he may resist any sort of, he can't be polymorphed, right? So there are problems, so if you lose aggro as the main tank against higher level mobs, so for that reason you want Precision. And then the same thing here, you do want improved Righteous Fury, because you may have seen in the video, I didn't touch on it too much, but I place improved Greater Blessing of Salvation in order to make sure that Parmenion and Daenerys simply output less threat. And that is a bit sad because Kings is a better blessing for them, but I just found in my experience that taking it slow and steady with each of the 3 characters just playing their roles is the best option. So since Brockshield is an AoE tank, he does need to generate more threat, and Righteous Fury increasing my holy threat through Consecration is the safest option here. From there, you do want all 3 points from Shield Specialization, and then the next most important trait is Blessing of Sanctuary. So to reach that, we'll increase our toughness, and then take Blessing of Sanctuary. Like I mentioned in the previous videos, this is a constant damage mitigation, so it's a no-brainer talent. From here, I chose to go with Reckoning to again generate more threat on single target boss level monsters, so that Parmenion and Daenerys don't draw aggro, which is pretty much usually the primary reason for going sideways and wiping on a pull is if the mobs go to a target that they're not designated to go towards. So I take all 5 points in Reckoning. You see here I only need 4 to activate one-handed weapon specialization. Technically, I guess I would argue this is more important, so I would place 4 into here and then 5 into here to increase the base one-handed melee weapon specialization. Same thing as this, you just want to make sure that you're increasing the damage on any of the notable monsters so that they don't just fly away from you. Especially you saw in the arena, if you watched the last video, a headrum can just go sideways on you quick, so you just want to be aware of that and make sure that you take it seriously. So the one-handed weapon specialization is useful because it just means you're doing more damage to boss level monsters as a tank. Then take Holy Shield. Of course, that is the primary damage mitigator you have in each of those AoE style pulls. I feel a little, but I mean, I should say I feel grateful because, to see the difference between how much damage Holy Shield saves you in high levels versus low levels was very good for me, because when I needed to heal in Blackwing Lair to get the tier 2 gear in the first place, I had to go Illumination to Divine Favor at the minimum, get Healing Light, so I was actually a competent healer. But now that I'm really not raiding as much and just enjoying my time in Blackrock Depths, I can slow down and look at what ability is best purely for a tank, and that definitely is Holy Shield. So from here you can see we have 9 points left. So the question to ask ourselves is, what are the most useful traits to get with these 9 points? I did have some thoughts before selecting, such as Benediction to parry. I mean, that seemed like a pretty decent idea. Whether it's getting Blessing of Kings, do I want Healing Light, do I want Illumination, something like that. Ultimately, I decided once more to look at what are the best traits and talents to choose from a pure protection paladin perspective. So for that reason, I chose to increase and max out Toughness and Reckoning. So I'll get my 10% armor value increase as well as 100% chance of extra attack when I eventually and inevitably get critical striked against higher level mobs. So again, Reckoning scales better against higher mobs that can crit you, whereas, this was not something I chose when I was trying to one-pull SM Cath, because the chances of the mobs critting me are less relevant to me than controlling my own variables like my healing output, etc. From here, I also got the 5 points in Anticipation because my base defense skill to me mattered more than reducing the mana cost of Judgment and Seals. Because again, in these scenarios, it's just a race of bringing the mobs down before the 3 resources of my collective characters are spent. In particular, the mana bar of Daenerys is the limiting resource of most of the pulls, because if I lose the healing, the pull is over in the first place. So for that reason, protecting Brockshield's mana bar isn't as relevant as making sure Daenerys can heal through and then Parmenion damages them as fast as possible. At this point, there are a lot of different ways we can go. I chose to pick Blessing of Kings in the event that I wanted to buff my tunes with Kings instead of Salvation. For example, if we were heading to Maradon, which is one of the videos I want to try in the future with this 3-man team, I don't imagine I'll use Blessing of Salvation because those monsters are a lot lower level. I mean, if you look at it, I am going for monsters between levels 48 and 52. So I look at it like I'm basically farming the Hellfire Citadel version of TVC right now. And so that is really exciting because you are getting Runecloth and only Runecloth, as well as epics like Edgemasters, Handguards, etc. that you saw me discuss in the previous videos. With this last point, you can go anywhere. I mean, I guess a conservative person would pick Healing Light because you use your holy spells more. I thought my healing would be enough because I have Daenerys, so I chose to pick Improved Lay on Hands. Simply because not only if I am using Lay on Hands, it means I'm in a bad spot and thus would like to have that room for error back quicker if I've already used the spell. So that was my first thought there. And then in addition to that, you also get the improved armor bonus, which is really important because Like I mentioned in my previous video, on the pull where I wiped the entire one of the entire half hallways of the Lord Road course out in one pull, I used Lay on Hands, which gave me an increased armor protection for the 2 minutes that I had the spell, which was definitely vital in completing the pull in the first place. So this is the final talent spec that I have chosen as of the Blackrock Depths contents. So thank you very much for allowing me to share this with you. If you enjoyed the video, of course, you enjoy the videos, feel free to like, comment, and subscribe as it greatly helps the channel. Light be with you all. Take care, and thanks again.